Hey everyone, I've been trying to think of some new video game related content to put on the channel that's not like just pickups or unboxing videos and stuff like that. I'm trying to make a little bit of different content, and I thought that I used to put up videos that sort of showcase like 3 games in a certain genre, or I showed like all the games in one series, and that was back before I had barely any subscribers. And I'm going to sort of try to revert back to something like that, but a little bit more streamlined. I figured I could do a couple different series broken apart, over many months or years or whatever. And I figured the first one I'd do would just sort of be take a system and show all of a certain genre of games I have on that. I'm going to start off with horror games on the PS1. Woo! Now this isn't every single PS1 horror game that ever came out. There are some that I used to own on the PS1 that I maybe got rid of or traded in, and got a upgraded version on another console like later on. Mainly because of either better graphics, extra content, or they just, overall perform better, on another console. So this is just what I own in the horror genre on the PS1. To start off, one of my favorite games of all time, and one of my favorite series of all time, it is Silent Hill. Silent Hill series all started with this game on the PS1, 1999. This game, 3 favorite things about it are probably the music, just amazing, atmospheric, creepy, haunting music. The design of the areas with the camera work was really unique for the time. I mean, the camera would sort of float and shift at different, intervals and times, going around angles or turns. And the creature design, I love creatures that don't necessarily fit a specific, I can tell exactly what that is. And the Silent Hill series in general has a bunch of, creatures throughout all the different games that really do fit that style, and they have, affected some of the creatures and things I build for Halloween now myself. So Silent Hill definitely has affected my life in many ways, all for the good though. The Resident Evil series started on the PS1. There was multiple entries. Then they re-released those entries multiple times on different systems. I currently own basically the first 3 Resident Evil games on the GameCube and not on the PS1. The only Resident Evil game on the PS1 I do own is Resident Evil Survivor, because that is the only system it came out on. It was definitely a big change for the series when it came out, being first person, not being really a survival horror game, but more of like a arcade style shooter, but you could control, the speed and the movement of your character. Got pretty poor reviews when it came out. The story is also a spin-off story that featured a character that basically had amnesia and wasn't related really to anybody that you've met in the series beforehand. So a little rough, around the edges, but they did release other first-person Resident Evil games down the road. So, I guess they didn't learn their lesson, but it just, I guess, depends on who you talk to. So I played and beat the game. Definitely not my favorite, but if you're, a die-hard horror fan, and a Resident Evil fan, you've never played this, it's worth, just a check out if you can get it for fairly cheap. But, yeah, don't expect to be blown away by it. Alone in the Dark was the start of the survival horror genre. Now, Resident Evil ends up getting the credit for it by a lot of people, but what Alone in the Dark started, Resident Evil and Silent Hill sort of took over and just made it better. Unfortunately, Alone in the Dark wasn't as intense or as scary as those other series ended up being. But there are 2 Alone in the Dark games on the PS1. The first one being Alone in the Dark, One-Eyed Jack's Revenge. The second one being The New Nightmare. Now, I own that one on the Dreamcast because it has quite a bit better graphics on the Dreamcast. Now, this game came out in 1996, so a full 2 years almost before Resident Evil ever came out. You play as Edward Carnby. You're searching for a kidnapped child. It has traps and puzzles and stuff in it, but just unfortunately not that very good. Now, to get even a little bit weirder in the horror genre, you have the Deception series of games. There's Tecmo's Deception, Kagero Deception 2, and Deception 3 Dark Delusion. Now, these games are all based around creating traps to ensnare and kill your enemies. You have quite a bit more control over what's going on in these games than you do in other horror games. It's more about, like I said, building traps aspect. By the time the third game came out, you could create like over 2,000 traps in it. So yeah, they're not as intense. Like you don't feel as vulnerable as you do in, say, like a Silent Hill. But they still have a unique place in the horror genre. Now, talk about some very odd cover differences between the three games. First one, if you can tell, had sort of a, it's kind of dark, but it had sort of a dark castle look to it. And then the second one, you have really like Western style, almost like role-playing characters casting spells. And then by the third one, you had looks like a vial or a jar with a biohazard symbol on it. So it's kind of seems like they were trying to fit, what they thought the game should go, into the consumer's eye, and changed it up like 3 times. But so if you're looking for a unique horror experience, go check out the Deception games. For a little bit of a different style, you can check out Clock Tower and Clock Tower 2. These are point-and-click style horror games. You basically can take a little cursor and you select on the screen objects you want to interact with or areas you want to go to. And in the case of these games, sometimes places you want to hide. First time I saw the game was over at a friend's house. When he was playing it, I didn't really, care too much. It didn't really draw me in. But when he finally passed me the controller, I kind of got it a little bit more. They're not as fun to watch someone else play as like a Dead Space or a Resident Evil. Now, you can see on the front of the first game, the guy with the pair of scissors, his name is Scissorman. He is sort of a B-movie horror monster. Not really that scary, more of like just cheesy. But I remember one part I was hiding in like a barrel or a vase or something, and he came into the room and stood right in front of it and basically just kind of stared at it and rocked back and forth, and I totally thought he was going to pull me out of it and murder me, but then he left the room. So it was sort of like a murderous game of hide and seek. So if you want a little bit of different style, check out Clock Tower and Clock Tower 2. These last three I'm going to run through kind of quick because I don't want this to go on too much longer. Martian Gothic Unification. If you like sci-fi horror, stories sort of like Doom or the Dead Space games on the current consoles. You are a 3-member team. It takes place on Mars, and I'll steal a line directly from the back of the case. You uncover a secret older than humanity. I enjoyed this game actually quite a bit, so if you like sci-fi and mix that with horror, check this one out. Second is Echo Knight. And if you like supernatural ghost stories, this is a good one. It's less horror, more just spooky. It's another game where you can't fully control the character's movements. It's sort of designated paths that you have to follow along. Takes place 1913 on a ship called Orpheus. Check this one out if you like ghosts. And finally, Nightmare Creatures. Very, very cheesy. Goofy monsters. A lot of blood and gore. Hack and slash. Not really scary so much as more of just, kind of creepy cool. But the character designs and the models were pretty poor even for the time when this came out. So don't expect a very pretty looking game. But you can get this game really, really cheap. So if you just want to, destroy some nasty creatures, check this one out. Thank you guys for watching. There are some other games that could kind of probably fit into the horror genre, like Final Doom, which I had right here, but I decided not to really show it in this. And there's a game called Coldeka. That's more of an horror RPG, but this was, what I really kind of considered into the horror genre on the PS1. So hopefully I'll, move on to next time PS2 or Sega Saturn or something for the horror series. So thank you guys for watching. Subscribe, like, thumbs up, that shit. And yeah, keep watching. Peace out.